I watched myself. This happened last year, and it still haunts me. I was in the hospital after a routine gallbladder removal. Nothing major. Everything was supposed to go smoothly. At first, it did. I woke up in recovery feeling okay. But about an hour later, I suddenly felt freezing cold, lightheaded, and like my heart was about to explode. I told the nurse something was wrong, and that's the last thing I remember from inside my body. The next thing I knew, I was watching everything from the corner of the room. I saw myself lying on the bed, pale and motionless. Alarms blared, nurses rushed in. One started chest compressions, while another called for a crash cart. I remember thinking, holy shit, I'm dying. But I wasn't scared. I felt calm, strangely detached. Like the body on the bed wasn't really me. Just a shell. I heard them shouting numbers, calling my name, yelling things like, "We're losing him." But I just watched. I even looked at my own arms. Except they weren't there. I didn't have a body. I was just awareness, floating. It felt like a dream, but sharper, more real than anything I've ever experienced. And then things got even stranger. I felt a pull, not like a hand grabbing me, but like gravity had shifted, like I was being drawn upward, somewhere else. Just before I could go, I heard a voice in my mind, calm and clear, say, "Not yet." Then I jolted awake, gasping for air, a mask on my face. My chest felt like it had been crushed. I had flatlined. Heart stopped. Gone for nearly 2 minutes. But somehow, I came back. I didn't tell anyone at first. But I'll say this. In those 2 minutes, I felt more alive than I ever have. Wherever I was, it wasn't nothing. And it definitely wasn't a dream. I know what I saw. Dinner turned time warp. Something seriously bizarre happened last night, and I can't stop thinking about it. It was just a regular weekday evening. My partner, our 10-year-old daughter, and I were making our usual quick dinner. Roasted cabbage wedges, potatoes, and smoked sausage. Super simple, super reliable. We've done this exact meal at least a dozen times. Total time, about 45 minutes tops. We kicked things off at exactly 6 p.m. Oven preheated to 450 degrees Fahrenheit. Everyone in their groove, chopping, seasoning, joking around. The vibe was relaxed. We even set a timer, like we always do. When the timer buzzed, the potatoes were perfectly done, but the cabbage needed a little longer, so we tossed it back in for another 10 minutes. And that's when things got weird. We sat down at the kitchen counter to scroll our phones and wait. Just a short pause, but then, bam! It's 10:03 p.m. 4 hours. Gone. Every clock in the house agreed. Phones, oven, microwave. None of us felt like we'd been there more than an hour. We weren't tired. We weren't zoning out. No shows, no naps, no distractions. Just casually chatting, checking on the food, keeping an eye on things, until we weren't. Even our daughter noticed something was off. She kept asking, "Why is it already dark outside?" But we brushed it off, until we saw the time. The craziest part, the food was perfect. Not overcooked, not dried out, nothing burned. The cabbage was exactly as it should be. Crispy edges, tender center. Same with the potatoes. It was like time passed normally for the oven, but not for us. So what happened? A glitch in the matrix? A time slip? Collective hallucination? I don't know, but I know what we didn't do, and that's waste 4 hours without noticing. It felt like 45 minutes, and I can't stop thinking about it. Has anyone else ever experienced something like this? Customer missing from surveillance footage. I work as a salesperson in a tabac press, a typical French shop selling tobacco, magazines, snacks, and some electronics. Most of the time I'm on my own, starting in the early afternoon after a short overlap with my boss. This happened last Tuesday. 2 middle schoolers who often hang around the shop came by. They're regulars now, and mostly come for snacks I sometimes give them when they're close to expiring. They can be a bit annoying though, as they like to go through items looking for the latest expiration dates. That day, they were messing with the headphone display and asking silly questions like, "How much are these 6 headphones?" While they were hanging around, a few customers came in, about 3, forming a small line. As I was ringing up the first customer, I saw the person behind him pick up a box of headphones. He was a tall black man, around 50, wearing all black, with dreadlocks and a graying goatee. His expression was serious. When he got to the counter, he only asked for a pack of Marlboro, no mention of the headphones. I glanced back at the display, and the headphones seemed to be in place, so I rang him up, and he left. The middle schoolers left soon after. Still, I had a gut feeling something was off. I counted the headphones, only 5. I remembered one of the kids earlier saying 6 headphones, so I noted in my phone, possible headphone theft at 3 p.m. The next day, I asked my boss if we could check the security footage. She fast-forwarded through it, quickly but carefully enough to track who came in and out. She found the middle schooler's visit, but when looking for the man I described, she came up empty. "There's only this younger black guy in white," she said. "Definitely not the one you described." Then she added, "But there was a theft. It was one of your middle schoolers." What shocked me most was realizing that one of the kids I'd been kind to had stolen. But what's really strange is that the man I remember so clearly, down to his clothes and face, doesn't appear at all in the footage. My boss even let me take over the footage controls, and I searched around the time frame thoroughly. Still nothing. Maybe I mixed up 2 different moments. Maybe he came at another time. But I remember thinking at the time that I should ask the middle schoolers if they saw him steal the headphones. That memory feels so specific. So, what do you think? Could it just be a lapse in memory or something else? I'd love your thoughts, and feel free to ask any questions if you think it'll help make sense of it. Duplicate wife. Almost every weekday morning, I walk my daughter from our house to her elementary school, which is just 4 blocks away. It's become a nice routine, some quality time together before she starts her day. While we're out, my wife is usually upstairs getting ready for work. She's a nurse, and her schedule is fairly consistent, so by the time I'm walking home, she's typically just leaving in her car. Since I work from home, I usually end up passing her on the street as she's heading to her job. It's a small but sweet moment in our mornings. We wave, blow kisses, sometimes smile through the car window. A comforting little ritual. Last Tuesday started just like any other. The weather was mild, and I walked my daughter to school without anything unusual happening. But on the way back, I saw my wife driving toward me. It was unmistakably her. She had her distinct purple-dyed hair, was wearing her usual black scrubs, and was behind the wheel of our very familiar gold 2012 Toyota Corolla. The car even had the license plate frame from our favorite sports team, just as always. She smiled, waved, and blew me a kiss as we passed each other. I smiled and waved back, thinking nothing of it. But when I got home just a few minutes later, I noticed something strange. The Corolla was still in the garage. Thinking maybe I'd made a mistake, I walked inside, and there she was, upstairs, still getting ready for work. Hair only half done, no shoes on, clearly not yet out the door. I felt a chill run through me. I told her what I had just seen. Her, in the car, driving to work. She looked at me confused and laughed nervously, insisting that she hadn't left the house yet. And she was right. She was standing right there. I couldn't explain it, and neither could she. The next day, Wednesday, everything went as expected. I walked my daughter to school, saw my wife driving to work on the way back, and sure enough, when I got home, the car was gone. Later that day during lunch, I texted her to confirm that we'd seen each other that morning. She replied, yes. She remembered waving at me on Wednesday, but not on Tuesday. So who, or what, did I wave to on Tuesday morning? If I was in the back seat, then who was driving? It never occurred to me at the time that what I experienced might have been some kind of glitch in reality, but I've never been able to explain it logically so I'm curious to hear what y'all think. In 2010, I was 37, married, homeschooling my 2 kids, sober, drug-free, and relatively healthy. Out of nowhere, I was hit with a migraine that lasted 2.5 months. That night, after taking a group of kids to a concert, I felt a headache coming on. I took some ibuprofen and didn't think much of it. I never got headaches, like, ever. The last one I remembered was back when I was a teenager. And for the record, I haven't had one since. But this was different. The pain quickly ramped up, and nothing helped. Not ibuprofen, Tylenol, Alev, or even aspirin. I assumed it was from the concert, or maybe all the dust I stirred up during spring cleaning. I went to bed early, assuming sleep would take care of it. It didn't. By the next morning, the pain had intensified beyond anything I'd ever known. It felt like someone was wringing out my brain like a sponge. Relentless. Constant. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, couldn't even stand up for more than a few seconds. Strangely, light and sound didn't bother me. But when you're already at a constant pain level of 10, maybe nothing else registers. I saw multiple doctors, specialists, underwent countless tests, including a spinal tap. 0 would not recommend. But everything came back normal. I made 3 trips to the ER. Each time, they sent me home with a cocktail of pills that didn't dull the pain at all, just knocked me out. Honestly, I think that was the point. The first couple of weeks, I thought I was dying. After week 3, I hoped I was. For context, I've given birth with no meds and passed a kidney stone at home that was nearly the size of a pencil eraser, also with no painkillers. I know what pain feels like. This was different. This was suffering. The official diagnosis, migraine of unknown origin. Not exactly helpful. I had dropped 30 pounds because I couldn't keep food down. Eventually, the doctors just told me they didn't know what else to try. I suspect some thought I was faking, though no one said it out loud. I was desperate for relief. Now, here's where it gets weird. 2 months in, my mom found a migraine specialist about 40 miles away. They could see me that same afternoon. My husband couldn't leave work, the kids weren't old enough to drive, and my mom lived near the doctor, too far to come pick me up in time. So, I drove myself. It had been about 15 hours since I'd last taken any meds. I got in my Saturn Vue and started the trip. I didn't think twice about it, just wanted help. About 15 miles into the drive, the pain spiked so badly that I blacked out, or something close to it. I don't think I ever actually lost consciousness because I was clearly driving, and then I wasn't. Suddenly, I was in the back of the SUV, lying down. I didn't remember pulling over or climbing back there, but I was definitely moving. Trees were passing by outside the window. At one point, I sat up, saw my mom's friend's house, noted her car wasn't there, and her yard needed mowing. Then I laid back down. The next thing I knew, I was working at the doctor's office. I was behind the wheel again. I never told the doctor. I was afraid he'd think I was losing it. I did tell my mom, though. It scared her. She thought maybe I was disoriented and climbing around the vehicle mid-drive. My husband, now ex-husband, didn't believe me at all. So I stopped talking about it. I knew it sounded unreal. People would chalk it up to hallucination, either from the pain or the meds. And maybe they're right. But the memory of being in the back seat, being driven by something or someone, is crystal clear. And honestly, I think it saved my life that day. I'd really like to know what y'all think. Strange experience with the moon. Something strange happened this evening, and hours later I still can't stop thinking about it. I had to write it down somewhere, and I hope this is the right place. For the record, I'm not someone who usually gets caught up in odd or unexplained things. I'm generally pretty skeptical, but this really threw me. I was out walking with my 2-year-old daughter around our neighborhood, as we do most evenings. One of our little routines is to look for the moon together. As we started down the sidewalk, we looked up and spotted it far to the left in the sky. It was just a thin crescent, and my daughter pointed it out. We called it a baby moon, like we usually do. We kept walking, only about 100 feet further, still facing the same direction. Suddenly, my daughter pointed up to the far right and said, "Another moon?" She just recently learned the word another, so I assumed she was confused. I responded, "There's only one moon, baby." But then I looked up, and sure enough, the moon was now over to the far right side of the sky. I turned around and looked back to the first place we saw it, and it was gone. I started wondering if I was just exhausted or not seeing things clearly. But then my daughter looked back at the original spot too, clearly confused, and started switching between pointing at the first and second locations, saying "bye moon" and "hi moon." We both stood there for a moment, looking back and forth between where we had seen it and where it now was. I know we weren't turned around. I clearly remember seeing the moon over my neighbor's house while their kid was playing basketball in the driveway. And then moments later, it was above the creek, near the entrance of the neighborhood, in the complete opposite part of the sky. Only about 2 or 3 minutes passed between the sightings. I still don't have an explanation. It was so weird, and honestly a little unsettling. The disappearing tape. One night, I was sitting on the edge of my bed, getting ready to sleep. My blanket was draped over my legs, and I reached over to grab my roll of masking tape from the nightstand, something I use every night to tape my mouth shut while I sleep, since I've learned that mouth breathing messes with my rest. The roll was about 3 inches in diameter. As I picked it up, it slipped from my fingers and rolled under the blanket, right behind my feet, which were also under the blanket. I lifted the blanket to grab it, and it was gone. I stood up, lifted the blanket completely, and checked both sides of the bed. I even looked underneath. My bedroom is small, with minimal furniture, so there weren't many places for it to go. I searched thoroughly, more than once. Even the next morning, I checked again just to be sure I hadn't missed it. Still nothing. It's been a month now, and that roll of tape has never reappeared. It vanished the moment it went under the blanket, like it slipped into another dimension. Strange encounter on the highway. I had a super weird experience earlier while driving. One I can't really explain and still can't stop thinking about. About an hour ago, I was on Highway 587 heading from Greenville to Raleigh, North Carolina. It's a pretty open stretch of road with a 70 miles per hour speed limit. I was in the rightmost lane, cruising around 65 miles per hour at the time, when I noticed a guy walking along the shoulder up ahead, coming toward traffic. He stood out immediately. He was a black man, kinda heavy set, wearing an odd-looking fuzzy hat, something between a beanie and a toboggan, but unusually tall and thick, like it was made for extreme cold. He had on a gray t-shirt, ragged pants that looked stained or torn up, and he was moving his arms in this strange, exaggerated way as he walked. The way he was swinging them, rhythmic, almost mechanical, made me think he might have been high or not fully aware of his surroundings. I passed him, gave a casual glance as I went by, and then kept driving. Nothing really out of the ordinary yet, just a strange guy walking along a fast highway. I picked my speed back up to 70 and kept going, still in the same lane. About 10 minutes later, maybe a little more, I saw someone ahead on the shoulder again. Traffic was light, so I had a clear view. As I got closer, my stomach dropped. It was him. The exact same guy. Same build, same gray shirt, same nasty-looking pants, same bizarre fuzzy hat, same unsettling arm movements, still walking toward oncoming traffic, toward me again. But I had never turned off the highway. I hadn't stopped. I'd been driving a steady 70 miles per hour for at least 10 minutes straight. There's no way he could have gotten ahead of me again, especially on foot, especially going the opposite direction. It wasn't just a similar-looking person. It was him. I had a clear, unobstructed view both times, and I'm certain of what I saw. I don't really know what to make of it. I've tried coming up with logical explanations. Maybe I was mistaken, or maybe there's some odd coincidence, but it just doesn't add up. It felt like a glitch in the Matrix, or like I'd driven through the same moment twice. Has anyone else ever experienced something like this? A glitch that happened earlier today. I just can't shake this strange feeling of something that happened earlier today, and I'm still trying to figure out if there's some logical explanation or if it was just a weird glitch. This morning, I went to pick up my daughter from school, planning to take her to her father's house afterward. On the way, I remembered that I needed to stop by the bank after I dropped her off. She asked if we could grab coffee before I dropped her off, and I agreed. No big deal. But in the process, the thought of the bank completely slipped my mind. After I dropped her off, I went straight home, not thinking about the bank at all. It wasn't until about 5 minutes after I got home that it suddenly hit me. Oh crap, I need to go to the bank to withdraw money for rent. So I grabbed my keys and purse, turned around, and left again to go to the bank. When I walked up to the teller with my withdrawal slip, she looked at me with a completely confused expression. I thought maybe I had forgotten to sign the slip or something, but when I handed her my ID, her reaction was odd. She almost jumped back, staring at me in disbelief. Then she looked at my ID again, glanced at me, and back to the ID. It felt like she was trying to figure out if I was some kind of imposter, or if my ID didn't match me. I started to wonder if she thought I wasn't who I was supposed to be. Then she asked, "I'm so sorry, but weren't you just here for this same transaction?" First I laughed, thinking she was joking, but she wasn't. I told her, "No, I just got here." I was so thrown off by her question and her confusion that I almost didn't know how to respond. She processed the transaction, but the whole time, it felt like she thought I was messing with her. Like one of those videos you see online where identical twins trick people. Only I don't have a twin. Not to mention, I was in the bank for the first time that day. The whole situation was so bizarre that I almost wanted to ask if I could see the security footage. But then I wondered, what if they think I'm crazy for even suggesting it? If I had gone to the bank at the time I originally planned, I would have been there just before I showed up the second time. It's so strange. I keep wondering if I somehow slipped into an alternate timeline or something. And if that wasn't weird enough, later in the day, while I was working my bartending job, I had another strange encounter. A woman came up to me and asked if I lived in the city where I work. When I told her I did, she said, "I swear I saw you earlier today, gardening in your yard. I always see you out there, in your garden." The thing is, I don't even live in her neighborhood. I don't garden, and I've never seen her before. I had no idea what to say. I don't know what's going on, but these two incidents have me seriously questioning reality. Has anyone else experienced something like this? I can't help but feel like there's some weird glitch in the system that I just don't understand.